And I thought, so I see how it is.
No, I can turn those in all the way up, so they shouldn't do that now.
Yeah.
And they're on just regular lots, whatever that is. They want
So they're coming JoAnn yesterday, and had her on sale. And so I got a first.
we were at
And then I got to go to Fashion Project and just bought it was pretty. I was like, oh my God.
The children, they were all over that. Oh my goodness, that's wonderful. This is my favorite.
But they're like selling for $2.
I love the good news is, I just love it. Good news is you have to say the same thing. It took me a long time to say I enjoy the program. That's true. Because I really am.
Well, I'm trying to get more into plant-based protein anyway. I realize how much meat I was eating.
In case you did not bring your history of the, or if you were not here last Sunday and didn't get a copy of the history of the church and its formation, courtesy of our church.
You need one.
Courtesy of what? Courtesy of Susan and the yearbook for 1971. That history came out of this little book. Y'all, my copies are here, and you can take a look at them if you're interested. So they are.
I've got some of these in home.
This is just reproduced and left. Do you have any idea who
There were, I just went to 2 days the first of 2 days that I celebrate, and I'll put celebrate in quotation marks. I celebrate each summer, and the first one is on Father's Day, but it's not a Father's Day only kind of place or celebration. And the second one is the 4th Sunday in July. And those are both what we in the area call Decoration Sundays. And on Decoration Sunday, you go to the graves of your ancestors, and you are supposed to take some flowers as a symbol of your remembrance of them. And as I age, it's become much more meaningful to me. It was not, as a child, I didn't appreciate it. I thought, why are we doing this? But usually in those old days, they had dinner on the grounds with lots of tables set out and lots of good food. So that was +1 there, even though I might not have understood the rest of it. But now, as I stand at the graves of my parents and 3 of my uncles from my dad's side, and 3 of my mother's sisters, and my grandmother from my mother's side, there's lots of questions that occur to me, you know? Like, who were you really? And what was life like 50 years ago, 100 years ago? And would you have planned or foreseen how life could be different, this much different? And I wish that I had asked them questions.
But, I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you, JoAnn. If you read her new book, you will find out a lot about her family. It really, go ahead, sorry. Throw that in. She did learn a lot.
Pause for a commercial.
Yeah.
Oh dear. But I think our history tells us, if we look back at it, something about who we are and how we got to be here. So if we look at this history of these people who started this church, they were Methodist. They had just a few members, 18 members initially. So they must not have been afraid to take risk. They must have been pretty brave.
Especially in the ocean of Baptists.
Mm-hmm.
When you think about that, they were afraid.
Well, not only an ocean of Baptists, but a very well established United Methodist Church already in Mars Hill and right outside of La Floral that came from 2 United Methodist churches. It had a very long history.
No?
I don't think Bravo.
Yeah,
Bright Hope
it
is a very
was.
old.
Mary
Bright
grew
Hope-
up going
Bright
to that.
Hope and Laurel were very well established United.
But they were distant somewhat in geography.
There was probably some overlap. There was a woman, and I bet she was involved in that church. I didn't talk about that. Ethel Moyer.
Yeah.
A woman in that church, and she was instrumental somehow. I don't know, it's a little bit before even my day, but she was somehow instrumental in the development and furnishing maybe the building of the parsonage for our church.
And they probably, how they usually have done church plants in the past, is they would usually take some well-established members from other churches who are really dedicated to that church and bring them to the new church.
Probably Raleigh and Edna English were among those.
They were.
Yes,
They were,
they were.
Raleigh was a charter member, and he probably came out of that congregation.
I remember Ethel Moyers.
Susan did the
She was my
Browns
teacher.
who lived near Wolf Law, but they came to church here, didn't they?
Raleigh
Raleigh
and
and Edna, no, they lived out at.
They lived right here at the intersection where you go to the Burnsville
So they
Highway.
moved to Wolf Law later.
No,
Yeah.
yeah. Actually, they eventually lived in one of the English home places.
Home
There were
places.
4 English brothers. And their house up there that they remodeled belonged to one of the 4 English brothers. My great-grandmother was a sister to those people.
And they left that home to Francis Powell.
No, their other home, they had 2 homes. They had one
But
home,
that one across
They-
from her.
but they had an old 2-story frame house that still stands, and it's used as something else now, I don't know what it is. But I remember back in the 70s, there was an open house there, and we went.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they're English, they're almost a clan.
So,
Yeah.
Actually, there are 2 clans.
Let me tell you, there used to be a little town, it wasn't really a town, a community called English. And that's where Mary Ruth's people, she was in English. And it's up near the Tennessee line.
Well, and there were 2, and I don't know how in the world this happened, but there were 2 English clans. There was Upper English and
Lower English.
Mary Ruth was Upper English.
Upper English.
My ancestors were Lower English.
Right.
Don't know what that adjective means.
And speaking of the Decoration Day, they do it in May. And I didn't know about all of this because we didn't do this in Mississippi. And when she saves her flowers all year, and she puts them in a big bag, and she takes them to Wayne's grave, and her parents and her sisters and brothers that are all up there in one big area. And one year, about a couple of years ago, I asked her if I could go with her to Decoration Day because I had never experienced that. And she said, I would love that. And so I met all of these people. Some of them, the younger ones, I've taught. And they said, oh, Miss Clinton, you're up here. I said, yeah, I'm not kin to y'all. I'm just here for the day. But it's a wonderful thing. And they talk about the memories.
They do, and they usually have at the one at Kona, which is the smaller one that I go to, they usually have someone from the community who has felt called to be a preacher, and it's a very different experience. They feel led by the Spirit, and they share their feelings, and sometimes it goes on for a long period of time. For those of us who are somewhat impatient and maybe not used to this, it can be a long period of time at least. But one of the things that's interesting about how we've changed over time is in the old tradition, it was only cut flowers. Then when my uncle was writing in his journal, he started on this rant about paper flowers. And paper flowers, he thought, were an abomination unto the Lord if you used them on Decoration Sunday, because they were not real, they were not the genuine thing, they were just a symbol of something. So that when I go to Kona, where my grandparents are buried and my Uncle Monroe, I can put my faux silk flower thing that goes over the tombstone on my grandparents' graves. But I can't on Monroe's. I have to have real flowers. And sometimes that's a challenge. But if we look back in history, we can see our beginnings. And our beginnings were because of the faithfulness and the determination and the activity of a handful of people. So don't ever worry that it takes a mass or a multitude. How many disciples did Jesus have? 12. So, 13.
If you don't mind, I'd like to tack on to the thing about decoration. My family has that set up. My dad's side of the family, we have a family graveyard, and we have a preacher come and do it's a whole church service. We have 5 or 6 hymns. It is in the true Baptist tradition. It's going to take forever. It's in the heat of the day. There is no trees for shade. But, and my dad's family is not affirming of female ministers, preachers, and pastors. But this past year, I was praying for God to give me the ability to share what I have in my heart with them. And the preacher that was supposed to come got sick on the day of decoration, and I felt truly bad for it. But I had a sermon prepped and ready, and I got to preach at my family's memorial. And my dad,
That's a blessing.
my dad said he got 18 phone calls from different family members saying I needed to do it next year.
Oh, wow.
So,
Oh, Shasta, that's nice.
That's an affirmation.
the story of passing on the mantle and what does that mean in our family and what does it mean to move on from, because we were all a big farming family. There's like 50 acres split amongst us. And we all had our own farms and tobacco farming and horses and cattle. And what does it mean that though a lot of us have corporate jobs and are moving away from that lifestyle, what does it mean to still be together and serving the Lord together?
And to be together and to remember and to look forward.
And Shasta, it's interesting that the family accepted a woman as speaker. That was, well, she was one of them, so.
And have invited her for next year.
Will it come to fruition? We will see, but,
But if we look back, we can see the history, we can see where we came from. We can't always understand it, but we can at least acknowledge it and appreciate it. But from that, we also have the present. What are we doing now? And I'm sorry that I left the things that we handed out that you were the questionnaire, because I do want to look at the questionnaire and finish that today.
I'm sorry, I left mine at home.
And I left it in the car and then took it in the house, and there it is. And
Also, you got a couple of pictures.
yeah, she's handing out, yes. So that's what I'd like us to do today, is to assess a little bit more what we know about the present, where we are now. How would you describe us to someone who has just moved into the community?
Well, yesterday I had a chance to talk with a young gentleman who is a friend of Colton's brother. And I was so happy that I had your little lesson, because we were talking about the church, and I could remember a few things, and so I was acting like I knew all the history of the church and spitting out details, and I was really happy you had done that. He seemed really impressed.
No.
We're going to get a person coming to visit today who is a friend of Laura's. He also rented Mom and Dad's house for a while, and I knew Paul, and he has thought about, I've invited him a long time ago, and Laura's been inviting him, and yesterday he said, I'm coming tomorrow.
Is he a tall guy?
Tall, yeah, He had a white shirt and a tie, and, he's very nice, very nice.
Well, as we fill this out, I think it's sometimes easy to join a group and to not understand how it works and how things get done and how decisions get made. And hopefully, if you finish up this little questionnaire, we'll have something to discuss about it. So, however far you got on your questionnaire, that is somewhere if you started last time, just continue. And we'll take about, let's take about 5 minutes, maybe 10 at the most.
I wondered yesterday, after a few years, we're going, people will come to this church because of him.
I can't tell off
Because of what? The funeral would bring people from it never considered just walking. Well, it did. So it did. I think some of them are obviously doing that.
Will.
Does everybody have a copy of the questionnaire? That's courtesy of Reed. This is Reed's.
Don't tell them who wrote that.
Yes, you did.
They'll say, what idiots that? It's my code.
I like it. I write in shorthand anyway, so I like
It should be. But that's, so that's. No, you're supposed to say,
I remember 12 pastors.
Oh, did you?
Since we've been here.
Oh, my.
I cannot remember the last name. David Scruggs. It's at Mary Lou's. I have asked her
Oh, okay.
to organize the pictures, and then Barbara Pate is going to make us a frame and have all the pictures the same size. And she's
Take it to her house or is it in Lisa's office?
I think it's in her house. She said she would do that. I said, that really needs to be done. That needs to be updated.
Where was your house before you got your new place? Was it in the same area? You lived in it more than I thought. I thought you always lived in it. You just came back and forth. Okay.
Is that problem?
Words.
I mix their names up.
Just sit there all day.
There was Beth, there was a woman before. Well, between him and Beth, there was well, no, I can't remember.
Yeah, turn in your paper.
Turn in your paper. That teacher's ready.
I wasn't expecting
No, don't no more answers in there.
Susan wants to share a couple more historical features.
I just want to make a comment that, one of the, charter members, Raleigh English, that we were talking about earlier, when he passed away back, I don't know, it's been probably 25 years ago, or more, But anyway, he willed a piece of property to this church, and that's the piece of property that we sold a few years back to help pay for the improvements and renovations that happened. So I think we got about 35,000, was that right, John? You were working on that?
Which
The
part,
property out here, not the parcel.
the highway?
Mhm.
Yeah, we have someone.
But that was a request from Raleigh Emeritus. And the other thing that I thought was kind of interesting, of these 18 charter members, there are 2 who are still alive. One of whom is Frances Powell, and she lives up on Huntington Fork.
She goes to Bright Hope Laurel.
Yeah.
Should we sometime have a celebration and invite her and the other member?
The other member is JoAnn Powell, and I believe she lives in Winston-Salem.
Oh, Wednesday, yeah, with her daughter Suzanne.
Well, I
Yeah.
think she's in a assisted living or retirement home, retirement village, something like that. And the other interesting thing about that is her, Frances, the one who lives up next to Bright Hope Laurel, her daughter-in-law is the preschool teacher on our Thursday program here.
Right.
Which is kind of interesting.
That's interesting. And she grew up a Baptist way back in the off of Petersburg, Grapevine area.
JoAnn, do you know the founding date, month, the day of the charter? We could have a Founders Day celebration.
Yes, we could.
Well, it says May 25th. I don't know if that's accurate or
Yes,
not.
it will be next week.
May 25th, 1959.
That's also Heritage Sunday.
Yeah, Heritage Month
Sunday,
plan.
which is a
Get 'em
meeting
on
of
that
the
month plan.
United Methodist Church.
It's what?
Heritage Sunday, which is a recognized day in the United Methodist Church for that purpose.
And what day is that?
Our Heritage Sunday is in May at some point, I believe.
That would be,
That would be appropriate.
it would be appropriate, you know.
Somebody writing that down? Connie, are you writing that down?
Yes.
She is. Okay, so quickly we'll
May
go.
24th.
May what?
May 24th is, or the Sunday closest to May
Pretty
24th.
close.
Oh,
Heritage
yes.
Sunday.
it is.
So it's this Sunday.
Okay, the two most common denominations of the early settlers, no surprise, Baptist, but maybe a little surprise, Methodist. How many different denominations or faith are there now in Mars Hill? Could you go to a Catholic church?
Yes, you can.
Yes.
Could you go to a
Episcopal church.
Episcopal? Yes.
Yes.
Could you go to a Presbyterian?
No.
Not in Marshall.
Not in Mars Hill.
Marshall, you could.
In Marshall. So,
In Hot Springs.
okay, what about other churches that
You
I
can go to a Jehovah's Witness,
Mhm.
Yes, you can.
real close to me.
For a while, we had that Greek Orthodox church right out.
Yes, we
right
did.
outside of
Yeah, they, I understand, built a new structure.
So there are many churches now to choose from, many different faiths. So the competition is a little bit steeper than it was 100 years ago, when there were only 2 Protestant choices.
But we have more people.
Congregation.
The person who I believe was instrumental in founding the Church of Holy Spirit, the Episcopal Church here, her name at that point was Susan Sherrod, and she was a member of our church.
Yes.
And very active.
But she began an Episcopalian priest.
Right,
That's why
but
she's
my point is, she was a part of our church at one time.
And then she left, after being there for many years, she left and she married again and came back and has been a member of that. Now, I'm not sure she's still here now,
She was last summer.
but she was, yes, she was recently, and still very much a part of that congregation after all these years.
Anyway, that was an aside.
Yeah.
So diversity it's wider, and it gives people maybe more opportunity to find a good fit and a home. The founder of the Methodist denomination was John Wesley, and the United Church here was formed, Susan, in 59 and 18 members. So from small beginnings to much bigger now, and it did have as many as we have had as many as 150 members on the. How
Is
many?
it Grady, and aren't Grady and Pat on the charter roll? They're not? Oh, I thought so.
They were just a little bit late.
Little bit later. We were asked,
They're
we
in
were,
this- they're in
we
this
were a little
directory.
bit
If you haven't-
later.
If you haven't seen Pat and Grady and Elkie in this directory, you would like that.
Yeah, see, I remember before Heidi and Elkie were even born.
Susan, when did Jean Robinson come to the church?
She may have, I don't think she was a charter member, but it was early on,
Early, yeah,
real early, like
Yeah.
she's in this 71 directory.
yeah.
And the church started from a donation of land to, that had a building on it, right?
On the donation, they bought it for $20,000. The house and land up and all, that's in this little history.
3,020. The one here with the string.
Yes. So we have that available if you didn't get it last time and you'd like to.
I ask one question, and John, you may know the answer to this, all of you may, I don't, but I'm not sure. I have been told that the end of our property on the road is marked by the telephone pole. Is that correct?
I don't
Does anybody know?
I don't know.
Well,
We don't have a plat?
that's
Yeah,
kind
there's
of,
one in there somewhere.
that in some ways that could be important because the house beyond that is for sale.
Right.
And they have also put out from time to time a sign that says private property, no trespassing. So we need to be clear where our property ends on that side.
And that can be answered by this last question on this first page. What group is responsible for the physical structure of the building and the ground?
Trustees,
The trustees, and who are the current leader or leaders
Joel
of?
and Anthony.
Yeah, Joel and Anthony. Yeah.
Look at that.
So
Okay,
there you have it.
turning the page. In our organizational structure, what group is responsible for program organization and structure here at this church?
I think it's the worship committee, isn't
Church
Do you mean-
council,
What do you mean by
PPR.
You mean the church council, you think?
Uh-huh,
Oh.
yeah. That's what I,
Including
the
everything.
church
Various
council.
chairs.
Mhm.
And the PPR is very much a part of that.
That, yes.
Yes.
So the part that's the working part of the church, not the physical part. The physical part goes with the trustees, right? If I'm wrong, let me know.
Yeah.
But you might want to name, not by personal name, but who is on the church council?
Okay.
When the church council meets, who does that include?
That
Well,
includes,
the head of all the other committees.
Yeah,
Uh,
plus the pastor,
yeah.
plus the rover, who's John, who's on all committees.
Oh, that's right, I am. I
Yeah,
just remembered.
Is that an official title?
and I put the current leader, John Rover, that's what I put.
No.
No,
The lay leader.
Judy,
She's the current chair.
that's
Yeah,
correct.
Judy's the chair.
so Judy Morehouse is the chair. Can you name someone else who has been the chair recently?
And
Clark.
Clark, yeah.
Okay. So if you had an idea that you thought needed to be addressed or shared, who would you take it to?
Judy, or John.
First to the chair of the committee.
Yeah, that you might think it
And
goes to.
the committees are education, right?
Mhm.
Now, those committees don't meet as part of the church council, I don't believe.
Yeah, they do.
They should.
Well,
They
but
should.
who is in charge of the education committee?
I don't know.
Reed.
Just
I know
Reed.
Ray's in charge of teaching Zoe that.
I think
Sorry, wow, I was trying to say something.
I think all of us need a list.
We had one given out.
Well, but there was a problem with the list that was given out. It was the list for last year.
Oh, okay.
It's on the website.
Oh, is it?
The
Yeah,
that's
current
good.
one.
Wiley has something to say.
Okay. No, this is absolutely correct that the church council is overall responsible. However, according to the discipline, there are committees which, if it only affects their responsibility and there is no change in the budget involved, they can move on their own. Now, they want to report to the church council, but they do have some power. For example, Emily is, and I always forget the name of it, is in charge of the mission and outreach. And so mission and outreach can do certain things without permission of the church council if it doesn't affect the budget and the church and everybody understands that X is mission and outreach's responsibility. So we've got to remember that there is some leeway here.
And if you have a trustees issue, you don't have to, if it's within the budget, you go to Anthony or Joel, and then if they meet and decide, we can't decide this, we have to go to the council, you know, that's kind of the order of things.
On the other hand, there is politeness and good order that says that even if you have the legal responsibility, you want the rest of the leadership to know and consult with them.
So it is important to maintain communication across the areas of responsibility and design and direction. So it would be helpful to have on the bulletin board the current posting.
That's a
for all of
good
that.
idea.
Absolutely.
Yes, on the bulletin board out here ought to be the current leaders.
The current, at least the church council and chair of
So the
any
lay
other.
leadership
sheriff.
reports.
And
Chair.
chair of each
Chair of each
committee.
other committee.
Yes.
I think you're right.
When most people
That's what
think
we're
about the
reading.
church,
That's the
they
report.
think about the worship service.
Right.
That's what draws most attention, and that worship service is certainly one of our strong suits.
Mhm.
It's an interesting combination of worship led by the minister, but also worship and participation in the music program.
Right. That was an important question to me.
And that's a very important part of our worship service, partly because it's diverse, because it has so many facets to it. Another part is because it has young people in it, as well as our own gifted musicians who are in the congregation. And it's led and held together by a very competent musician himself, Joe.
That's right.
So, when we're thinking about outreach, which is down here a little bit further, someone suggested to me that one of the things that we might think about considering would be providing for the preschool some little music experience, or helping them provide that music experience so that they could sometimes perform perhaps at our service. And if they did perform, their parents would be likely to come and visit.
Well, you know, we do that twice a year, and they usually do sing.
They sing a lot.
They sing a lot in their program.
And they have little, we could have little tambourines. Do you not remember? when
Yeah,
we used
oh
to-
yeah, the little sticks.
Can I just, interject here, you know, COVID threw a lot of things out of whack, okay? But we've already, just to share with you, and the trustees have been talking about the fact that, and I guess maybe as staff parish also, we have an agreement that was signed right before COVID, and we're supposed to revisit it every year so that we maintain this close relationship with the preschool that uses our building here. So we are actually, that's on our agenda, I believe, for our next meeting. Now, how do we get together with Miss Janet and Miss Denise, I can't remember Denise's last name.
Powell.
Mm-hmm. So Miss Murray and Miss Powell, that we will revisit and re-sign that agreement. And you know, part of that is like if they wanted, we would, because Nancy Britton, for instance, is not here anymore, but she used to be a reader. So some of that stuff is really being considered.
Right.
And just so you know that what you're saying, we are already aware of, and we are trying to work on that.
And before Nancy read to them, Phyllis read to them herself.
Mm-hmm.
And they got to know her, not only as the minister of our church, but she read to them, and she really enjoyed doing that before Nancy.
Go ahead.
There was, up until COVID, and one death in the church, a designated representative to be in continuous communication with preschool, and we need to see to reinstituting that.
Yes. I was that person.
There's a provision in that agreement that says that. Like I said, COVID just threw everything out of whack. Things have been let go.
For years, we had a person who was designated the communications. Connie was it, Elke was it?
Yes.
I can't remember who else.
Yeah.
Be nice to have something involved in that once.
I think that's a great topic for the next council.
Yes.
And I would even wonder if Bree would be willing to
Don't
do it.
hear you. Go there,
From-
don't do
From
that.
the perspective of
again.
education and also the perspective of her grandson having a good part of it.
Can I also
That's
say,
to put her on the spot.
I'd like to say one thing.
Vested interest.
That we have Vespers across the street.
Yes, that's my next.
That's man.
What did she
Chip
say?
and I did it every 3 months, and one of the Vespers.
The Vespers across the street.
Good
Oh,
time.
and now that they are coming to our church as participants, I wondered if we couldn't offer to give to them, I know they do bingo, but if we could offer to give to them something like music occasionally, or perhaps a game night every now and then, that would maybe help them to pass some time. And, I think Cindy and Chip have gone. Carol knows. Okay, so, good idea. That is the two ends that quite often get the short shrift because they don't have a big voice. The old and the very young, the children and the old people. Okay, how many other groups or individuals can you identify who have special responsibilities in our church?
A&D's here.
Okay, that's an outreach.
Yeah.
Who loves the lawn and who cleans the house? You know,
That's right.
important things. Barbara
does more than anybody as far as cleaning. Anthony has come in recently and mopped the floors 3 times one week in preparation for.
And it's amazing how much this building is used, and if it is used, it gets dirt trapped in. It's a fact of life.
I just received not an official request, but an inquiry about adding Al-Anon to the groups that meet here.
Yes.
Which would be a really significant addition to the Mars Hill community. As the father of an alcoholic, I would be eligible to be there. And I hope we can find trustees some time period that would be open, that we could offer that to Al-Anon, which is family of alcoholics.
Barbara?
I know that, I talked to the guy yesterday about, Friday I think it was, I talked to a guy about, what he's talking about. And, he was real nice. But he said he wanted to try to do it on Tuesday night. And I don't know if we have anything on Tuesday night or not. I know you have handbells.
This afternoon.
Trustees on Tuesday nights, but that's every so often. That's not every week.
It's a double bell. You mean on Tuesday nights?
Yes.
But that can be explored. I think it
Yeah.
is very worthy
They're like
to
moving
explore.
Mondays.
Shasta?
Yeah, sorry, this is like my area that I'm really passionate about. I've actually talked with a few of you guys about this. I would love to take the concept, so there's Al-Anon, right? And then there's Nar-Al-Anon, which is also narcotics. And because of the fact that we don't have two separate groups yet, I think it would be best to combine those for at least a short time to see what kind of base we have. Some recent statistics based on Madison County Health Department's 2019 interest survey. Out of 4,000 people, I think they said 89% knew someone that had passed due to addiction or has currently been addicted for 6 months or more. 74% of those are people who are addicted to meth or fentanyl. The rest of the margin, -2%, is pain pills. They don't even count marijuana within these statistics. I think they said, there's a few other really big statistics within this area. Let's see, I think only 8% have the ability to afford or take time from work to go to places like Copestone. Copestone has a 9-month waiting list for the sliding scale people. We took a family member of mine, and he's a minor, and his 7-day stay costed $10,000, and 2 days later he was high again. So, they're just trying to push people out, in and out of the program to hear what they want to hear, and then move them out back into society. We have one of the highest rates in the county for incarceration due to drugs and drug paraphernalia, or in the state due to drugs and drug paraphernalia. And that is only with 22,000 people in our county.
Well, Shasta, I'll tell you and Wiley, Laura is very interested in being a part of this.
Well, Laura was frankly the one who talked with me.
Yeah, she talked with me yesterday about it too, and she said, I'm very interested in trying to help whatever that takes to start an Al-Anon here in this church.
The closest Al-Anon program currently is on the other side of the airport. Because after my brother passed, my therapist suggested it to me, and it was on at 2 o'clock in the middle of the day. And obviously, we couldn't get out of work for that. So.
One other, just for the, to kind of put in your brain, I've been approached, and in 2 ways. One is a person who has this need, and another one is a church in Columbia that has established a series of trainings for people who are principal caretakers of either their parents or their children, or people who can't care for themselves. And this would be another place that been, people who have resources and who know resources in the community and opening up to the community, like we did with our discussion on abortion. We could have a series of these and maybe even repeat it twice a year or something like that. There are really expert people, including you, that can help us with that.
And I think Mission and Outreach is looking into that too.
I actually already have all the welcome information packet for Al-Anon. I have all the promotions, flyers, things like that. Because I was gonna try to get this started at the beginning of COVID somewhere, but because of COVID and all that, I didn't get a chance to. So I already have all the pamphlets, information, flyers, materials. My problem is I've never been to an AA or an NA meeting, so I don't know how the structure is set up because Al-Anon is set up the same way. There's steps, you get chips for attending for so long, support groups, sponsors, and I think that's really the biggest hurdle at the moment is finding someone from the NA or AA program to be able to help us establish that routine until we can get it on our own.
May I say that there's a really good resource written by Richard Rohr. It's Swimming Underwater, and it's all about the AA program.
Well, Laura is a member of AA, so we do have a connect, and there are others in the church that have been members of AA. So we have good connections.
Mm-hmm. So certainly we have today identified some areas that may be places that we should go.
It's a new chapter in our history that we're talking about.
And until we explore these and we can gather ideas, we can come together and discuss, and we can maybe make a commitment to our church being more involved in what some people would call social justice.
Mm-hmm.
Which goes back to Micah chapter 6, verse 6. What does the Lord require of you? To do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God. The end. Amen.
Two really quick announcements. July 10th, so not next Sunday, but the following Sunday. First off, 7:30 a.m. Men, sorry ladies, you don't have to get up early. Men, the men at Pride Hope Laurel have extended an invitation to breakfast at Pride Hope Laurel United Methodist Church with their men's group at 7:30 in the morning. They have their worship at 9:30 a.m., so they're doing a men's breakfast with probably sausage, bacon, eggs, things of that nature. They'll have a short devotional, but just as many of the women at Pride Hope Laurel, where there's not a strong United Methodist women's group, or now Women United in Faith group, they've been coming over here, so the men wanted to extend an invitation for the men of Marsville United Methodist Church to come over on July 10th at 7:30 in the morning. That afternoon, our district superintendent, he often comes to worship here, and his wife is a member here, is hosting a conversation around sort of the future of the United Methodist Church and what the United Methodist Church is. It follows sort of the theme of BUMC, which is sort of the ongoing dialogue of why different people are United Methodist and want to continue to be United Methodist. That's going to be held at 2 p.m. on July 10th at Christ United Methodist Church in Weaverville. And so I'm not certain of this, but I do believe they sort of carefully selected churches that may be churches that could have some propensity to no longer be UMC. So it could be an interesting dialogue, just given how some of the churches there have.
Where is that?
Christ United Methodist Church is on 70, headed toward Marshall. So just after you pass Lowe's, headed toward Marshall. If you look up on your right, it's just up
Yeah,
outside the
up on the hill.
they have a little billboard sign out there, but that's at 2 p.m. July 10th. So if you want to have breakfast at 7:30 a.m., come here for Sunday school at 10. You'll be back for Sunday school worship, and then if you wanted to be
You certainly should be
Christ-
saved after.
just save the day. The whole day.
Emily
I'm
has
all for free breakfast.
Emily has a question.
So we don't trip over each other. I'm thinking of going across the street and seeing how we open our doors and